Good afternoon. Welcome to our next episode of Family Law Uncensored. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Maya Shulman, family law and family formation law practitioner. And today we will be talking about different types of adoption process and what is required for that adoption process to be successful. First of all, I need to talk to you about different kinds of adoption. First of all, there is a step-parent adoption. Second of all, there is a foster adoption. Then there is agency adoption, and then we can talk about baby adoptions or embryo adoptions, or we can talk about international adoptions as well. So first and foremost, the simplest one is the step-parent adoption. Just like the name suggests, one of the parents is the biological parent, or what we call a birth parent, and the second parent will be a step-parent who lived or cohabited with the birth parent in the beginning. So that is the simplest of adoptions. Courts like it, they make it streamlined, it's fairly simple, but still you should want to have an attorney to shepherdize the case through the legal system. And the first thing you need to do, you need to file a petition for adoption. And the cost for this process is the least expensive cost of anything else you can do in legal profession. The courts will charge you only $20 for this entire case. The court wants you to become a parent. The court wants you to adopt, and the court will make it as easy as possible and as inexpensive as possible. A home study is a process that one must undergo when adopting a child in California and other states as well, based on my information. A home study is also done by the Department of Children's Services unless you want to hire somebody on a private basis. That's going to be a little bit more expensive, but probably faster. So it's really up to you how much money you want to spend on this process. If you want to expedite it, you will go by private route. And if you really are okay to wait a month or two or three, then the court system will provide you a person or personnel to do a home study who really works for the court system on a county pay basis. The home study will involve a visit to your house, interview with yourself, your spouse, your partner, your other children, and possibly some collateral sources that are going to be determined by the person who will compile the home study. A social worker is usually the person who will conduct a home study. A social worker is the person who will have initial contacts with yourself, your spouse or your partner, your other children in the house, possibly doctors if the social worker determines they are necessary to get information, possibly law enforcement if there is something that social worker need to verify, and the social worker really is the shepherd for the process to go forward to present your case to the judge. TPR is the acronym that stands for termination of parental rights. TPR is necessary to terminate the rights of a biological birth parents before the child is freed for adoption. You cannot proceed with adopting a child yourself if a birth parent is still in the way in the background and his or her rights are not relinquished or taken away. So that would be one of the required steps in the adoption process. Termination of parental rights is done only by a judge. It cannot be done outside of the court system. You cannot agree to it voluntarily without the judge signing off on it. You can't write it up on a piece of paper without an attorney being present or appointed for you. That is because a parental right is a fundamental right that is inscribed in the Constitution of the United States. So that process is not needed to be dealt with carefully, with legal representation and under judicial supervision. Adoption agency is a facilitator of sorts to progress the case in the adoption arena from inception to the end. Most of the time, adoption agencies are involved when we talk about adoption of babies. Adoption agencies are called most of the time when baby is abandoned at the hospital. Adoption agencies are called when babies are surrendered under safe haven laws at the fire station or church or doctor's office. That's when the adoption agency is called. When the adoption agency is present and takes over the baby custody, then the adoption agency then is the custodial parent that functions in lieu of the parent. So the adoption agency will have been in charge of that baby who has been abandoned or surrendered. The prospective parents need to be aware that there will be costs associated with the adoption. The first and foremost that comes to mind is the home study that an adoptive parent will have to pay for. Whether that home study is done on a private basis or county basis, that is still an out-of-pocket cost that an adoptive parent or parents will have to pay for first. Then also, I would suggest that adoptive parents may want to consult with their tax preparer, because those costs may be a tax reimbursement to go forward that the IRS will provide for you, because the adoption costs are reimbursable. But that is not something I can consult you with. That is why you have your tax accountants and tax preparers that I will refer you to, because that is something that the court will allow you to get reimbursed for. The steps that parents, intended parents and prospective parents should take, or the prospective adoptive parents should take to ensure the process is smooth sailing, is really, and I hate to repeat myself, you need to consult with an attorney who specializes in adoption law or family formation law. That is not your run-of-the-mill case. That is not something that every attorney knows how to do. It is a very specialized arena, and only family formation attorneys and adoption attorneys are the lawyers who know the process. Adoptions are different depending on how you want to initiate the process. If you want to adopt through the agency, you will have to do an agency adoption. If you would like to adopt a child from the foster care system, then you will have a foster care adoption for you. Now, I will also tell you that in California today, just in Los Angeles County, there are about 3,000 children in foster care system who are available for adoption, and they're waiting for you to intervene in their lives. They're waiting for you to give them a home, and they're waiting for you to take them into your family. Those children will be adopted through a foster adoption process, and that is one of the things that you need to know about, because foster adoption is fairly simplified. The county wants you to adopt children from the system. The county will want you to take a class that is required before you can adopt from the system. The county will want you to have a mental assessment as well, because the county want to make sure that if the child comes to your home from the system, that you know that that child may have special needs, that that child may need special assistance, and that child will require more possibly than any other child that you will adopt outside of the foster care system. The most common legal challenges in the adoption care system are really quite different. I'm not sure that they're most common, but I can point you to a few different ones for you to realize that no adoption case is the same. No two adoption cases are the same. They may have similarities, but I don't know that two of them will be identical. So the most challenging cases are the ones where the birth mother changes her mind after first relinquishing a baby for an adoption. She has the right to change her mind. And if she does, it will be a challenge for her, it will be a challenge for you, and it will be a challenge for the baby. So one has to be very careful when going through an adoption process, whether it's a baby adoption, a toddler adoption, an embryo adoption, or any other forms of adoption. And information is indispensable. Good advice is indispensable. Good lawyer is indispensable. You have a variety of things that can go wrong, but you also have a variety of things that will go just right. When a biological birth parent surrenders his or her right to the child, they are no longer considered a parent in the eyes of the court and in the eyes of the law. However, with that being said, every adoption has what's called a post-adoption contract that the court will want you to sign, or the birth parents will agree to completely walk away from his or her born child, so that the post-adoption contract is not necessary. But if you want to have some type of contact with your child who is going to be adopted by somebody else, you have the right to intervene, and you have the right to participate in the post-adoption contact and contract. Also has to be negotiated by lawyers on both sides, sign off by the court, sign off by the judge, and that contract will specify how much contact you will have with your child who will be adopted by somebody else. That contract may provide for annual pictures, it may provide for school reports, it may provide for you being able to observe your child in school plays, or none of the above. So it's going to be very specific to your case. No two cases are the same. Your case is yours, and your adoption contract is yours. It is very rare for an adoption to be contested after it's finalized, and the reason is exactly this. Once it's finalized, the court presumes and assumes the case is finished and the adoption is finalized and it goes forward. Now, the reason for it is because the court takes it very seriously when the court is going to terminate parental rights of the birth parents. And when the adoption is finalized, the court presumes and makes sure, really makes sure that all the steps, all the processes, legal and practical, have been complied with. Therefore, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to challenge and reverse an adoption once it has been finalized. When it's finalized, a new birth certificate will be issued. When it's finalized, there's going to be a final adoption order signed off by the court. When it's finalized, the adoptive parents become new parents, and they have the right to take that adoption order to the social services department, issue a new social security card for the child they've adopted. They can take it to the school and change the records. They can take it to the medical office and change the record. And they have the right to have a new passport issued to their newly adopted child with that new adoption order. So to reverse an adoption, it is going to be very difficult, if not impossible. In my experience, it's usually about a year that is a requirement for an adoption process to be finalized from point A to point Z, unless something unforeseeable happens, unless some underwater current will torpedo the adoption. But usually most cases that I have had are being finalized in under 1 year. So if that does not happen, it is probably because something had occurred. Maybe birth parents experienced a difficulty, or they were difficult, or somebody did not provide timely consent. But again, typically adoptions are finalized in under a year, and that is because the court wants these cases to go smoothly. The court is looking out for the new family to be a new family, and the court is interested in the children having a good home. That is my wrap for today. This is Maya Shulman, your host for Family Law Uncensored. You can find me on social media, Zoom, link, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can text me, you can DM me, you can send an email. I'm very reachable, and I will see you next time.